when people are just starting or testing something, do you keep your goals really realistic or do you keep them ambitious?
So the fascinating part is this: we are going to be a slave to our minimum standards. We're just going to be a slave to our minimum standards. And and so what I like to do when I set goals is I want to be super real. I'll run the spreadsheet. I'd be like, hey, so I believe that these metrics are good. Here's a aggressive situation. Here's a realistic situation. Here's a baseline situation. Awesome. Hey, team, if we do anything under the baseline, we failed. If we hit the things, it's great. But I'm assuming that this is the realistic situation. That becomes my minimum standard. The hardest part is it is very, very difficult for someone to switch their minimum standards in their minds, in their current environment. That's the problem.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of The Passionate Few. Today we have on round 2 with the man who took Tellez to 3.4 billion. And he's a good friend of mine. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's an investor. And he's the mentor to mentors, the CEO coach to coaches, and overall just a good human being who's on a mission to help people, and somebody who I look up to as a dear friend. He's a mentor to me, and he's a badass entrepreneur. So I just wanted to bring him on for round 2. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Sharran.
Omar, man, excited to be on with you. Time to pour some value back into this audience.
Yeah, man, I love it, dude. And at the time of us recording this, I know it's in the middle of the COVID situation. A lot of entrepreneurs are going through challenging times, and with how big of a hit your first interview was, a lot of people requested to have you back on. So thank you again for your time and hopping on today, brother.
Of course, man. Hey, I think a lot of people don't realize that, one, you don't need to do this, right? I always talk about that. You don't need to do this. And the time we're recording this, you can have spent elsewhere doing other things, but you always find a way to say, hey, how can I bring more value? How can I create a space for others to succeed? And so the world needs more like you, my friend. So thank you for having me on.
I appreciate that, man. And I know you're a busy guy, so I really appreciate you taking the time and diving deep with us. So real quick, man, a lot of people may have seen your first interview, but some may not. Can you just give us a little bit of context of what you've done in business and in the entrepreneurship space, and sort of why you're so passionate about entrepreneurship? Just give us a little 1-minute resume, so to speak. Just so
totally, right? So everyone believes that everyone has a rags to riches story, and they say, hey, suddenly he came with $1 from nothing to nothing. But people forget how it all started for most people, and the fuel, the spark is super important. Everyone needs to know that I was born in very humble beginnings. My life was mediocre in every possible way, but I just had insanely amazing parents. And my dad was a professor at a local university. My mom was a nutritionist. They were barely making, any money, and they did not have another child because they only wanted to at least give me everything that I got. And it was so crazy that my parents decided that they would not want that anymore, and so they quit everything, and so they decided to create entrepreneurship as a kind of guiding path for them. And so my parents launched a business out of our 1-bedroom apartment, and I sometimes wasn't even allowed to leave the bedroom because they were working out of the living room. So in essence, I grew up in the start of a business. I grew up in the belly of the beast. I grew up with a MBA of sorts, learning how everything was done. So from that point in time, I actually believe that entrepreneurship is not in my blood, but it's in my childhood, it's in my life. And I know no other way but seeing my parents hustle to create something from nothing. And it all started there. And from that point on, it's gone on to a lot of sacrifices that my parents have made. Started several businesses, a bunch failed, a bunch succeeded. Yeah. And the funny part is we all end up telling the story of everything that went well, and no one really looks at everything that didn't go very well. And I think that you take any entrepreneur around the world, they'll tell you that the reason why they were able to hit the highs of highs is because they were able to bounce back from the lows of lows. So have a mix of all of those, and excited to kind of share that with everybody.
Yeah, man. And just to give the audience a little bit of context of the lows, I mean, we're talking about you were living in India, you didn't really have a lot of money. I know in our first interview, you mentioned that your parents literally came up with a plan to play tennis in order to actually get a scholarship that would then lead to, you actually coming to the country in the US and actually getting the ball rolling. Can you talk a little bit about just how much that hustler's mindset was ingrained in you As an immigrant, we hear stories of people doing that, but I mean, your story is insane. I mean, you go from that to, within a decade of that becoming, having success in business and really learning what like a multi-million dollar, situation could be like. I mean, it was foreign. So can you give the audience a little bit of context
Yeah,
as
yeah.
to that, some of the low lows you came from and the crazy stuff you had to go through to find success early on?
Yeah, so I think people forget that
Mhm.
when you look back, a lot of our lives have a lot of similarities. And I'll give you and people for some reason, and I was one of those. There was many stories and many things that were shared that I had never shared until the interview with you. And you know that my parents didn't know things that I shared until the first interview with you,
Yeah,
which was
like dumpster diving and eating Pop Tarts with raccoons, being so broke you had to grab pizza from places in college. Yeah, it's wild,
yeah.
man.
My parents still they watched it. My dad told me, yeah, we'll talk about that later. Like literally, that's the entire conversation we've had on this topic. But most importantly, what everyone needs to know is I'm just like you. And what I mean by that is that uh, I'm colorblind, means I got kicked out of art class. I'm tone deaf, means I didn't do music class very well. I'm dyslexic, so my math and science were hard for me. And I was one of the smallest kids. I got my growth spurt much later, so I was the last kid to get picked on on sports, etc. But what I realized was, based on all of these things, I just got I got bullied, and I didn't really know that that was not okay. I thought, oh, I'm the dumbest smallest kid. Of course, I'm going to get bullied, but I didn't realize the impact it had on me. And I think I shared the story with you. Like, I wouldn't even walk from one classroom to another classroom 20, 30 feet away. I would run around the school just to not get bullied in the lockers. And I never shared that with anybody, but my parents had some kind of idea. And they realized that, okay, I know something's going on with my son. He's 10, 11 years old. We got to do something for him. He won't talk about it. Culturally, we don't talk about this stuff.
Right.
What do I do? And kudos to my parents for never having left India. They realized that they were like, hey, any infrastructure is better than what we have. So we got to find a better place for our son to do something. And so my parents said, well, how, like, we don't have the money. So how, he's got to find a path out. What do we do? And I remember sitting, it was like my 10th or 11th birthday, sitting on a park bench with my dad, and he was staring out a couple tennis courts, and he looked at the tennis courts and he said, well, maybe you can play tennis if you did really well and not focused on anything else. Maybe that'll be your passport to just leaving the country with a skill. And there's two lessons there, right? Number one is the ability to say, okay, I can actually be a one-trick pony and do well. Like, everyone thinks that, oh, I need to be multifaceted. Omar is a one-trick pony. I'm like, do you have any idea? One-trick pony make a shit ton of money. Like, just so you know, one-trick ponies are totally okay. One-trick ponies, like, one trick is like, you literally only need one trick. And people don't realize the singularity of power of the singularity of focus around one trick. And that was my first thing, where if I can learn one skill and go deep on it, I can open up a lot of doors. And so we put academics in the background. All I did was play tennis. And when it came to college time, my parents didn't have a lot. They literally sold everything that they had, everything, to get me out of the country with, a year's worth of kind of financial backing to get out and come to the States. So since I left India over, I don't know, a long time ago, 25 years ago, I have not been, I've not been back in 20 years. So and my parents paved the way by giving up everything that they had to get me here.
Did that pressure you, Sharran, to have to succeed, or did you kind of take it for granted early on at that time? I know now it's easy to romanticize and be like, oh yeah, totally. But at that time, was there like a big like weight on your shoulder to have to succeed, or at that time were you kind of just taking it for granted?
Well, I didn't take it for granted. What I did, I remember this a lot. I didn't take it for granted per se, but what I did appreciate was I made a non-negotiable with myself of saying, my parents gave me this gift. They told me that, hey, you have 1 year of school paid for. It's your responsibility to figure out the next 3 years or further. If you don't make it, come back and we'll take care of you. They gave me a safety net, right? But I had made a decision that I burned the boat. I said, I'm never going back. So that was the decision that I made, saying my parents did all of this. There is no there is no choice for me. Like there is no backup plan. Like I'm a no plan B kind of guy, and there is no plan B. And once you make that decision, you start to look at the world in a whole new set of possibilities, and not for any other reason that I just didn't want to go back to that old life. That was more the reason than anything else. It was not about letting my parents down or anything. It was more a, yes, thank you for the sacrifice that they made, but there was no plan B. I am never going back. Even if I had to stay in the US illegally, like I was never going back. And that helped kind of saying, okay, well, if this is my new life, what do I do to create this new life?
And then, so tennis became the vehicle. You end up playing tennis, getting good at it, and it actually ends up working out. You come to this country on a tennis scholarship as you planned. It wasn't necessarily your passion or whatever. I guess your passion was the mission to get to the States with this opportunity. And you actually committed, like, how many years, real quick, to actually play tennis? Did you play in and out, like, with the sole focus of making it happen before it worked out? Or what was your mind?
So it was it was 5 years of that being, I was 11 to 16. So it was 5 years, 16, 17. This was 5 years of just everything else was secondary.
To tennis.
Yeah. Everything else was everything else was secondary. My parents didn't care about my grades. Good for them as Indian parents. Everything else was secondary. But you know, you have to be careful because, like, let's say, like, I got injured once, and once you get injured, you're like, oh my gosh, what happens? I got nothing to fall back on. So yeah, when you go deep on a skill and you're like, this is my skill, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to be known for, it's pretty powerful because you can really push through with that.
Yeah, and you can be resilient. You can be all in, not distracted.
Yeah.
Be a master of a trade instead of a jack of many. Okay, so then talk to me. So then you come to the country, and just give the audience a quick, like, 30-second recap of, you know, what you were able to do in business. Obviously, you've had a couple hits. You know, you've sold and exited a couple companies, many in the multi-millions, and as well as Teles. Can you talk a little bit about Teles, and then we'll kind of get into a couple questions, just so the audience has context of what you were able to do with Teles, get into a company, turn it around, and then exit when you did.
Yeah. So the exit stories have been interesting. So I'll tell you, it's 5 exits in the last 19 years. And so that's been the story so far. The last one was a real estate business that we took over. Me and my partner took over. My partner of 20 years, 50-50 partner of 20 years. He is 63. So he's like a father to me. And he was an investor in my first company. So I've known him a long time, and he serves in the chairman role of all our businesses, and I serve in the CEO role. So it's a really good partnership. And so we invested in this small company called Teles Properties. It was 25 agents to 30 agents in Beverly Hills, California, selling real estate in the high-end markets. The original founders had a great idea, but it was going in the wrong direction. I was an investment banker at Goldman Sachs at that time. I got brought in to just advise some friends. Looked like the founders are going in their own wrong direction. So we actually bought the founders out and decided it would be a turnaround play. At the time of taking it over, it was doing well, but the founders were not aligned. So it was doing $300 million in top line revenue. And it was our chance to say, okay, well, how can we make this an insane value for everybody involved? And so I threw out this number. I was like, well, if we all if the company hit a $3 billion top line number, we would all do really well. And the board laughed at me. And I said, well, no, I'm serious. And they said, well, let's come back with a plan and show me if this is really possible. I said, not only do we have to get it to 3 billion, we've got to get it to 3 billion in 5 years. And they said, why 5 years? And here's my rationale. I said, well, generally economies go in 7-year cycles. We just came out of one. And so you have 7 years, but we probably need 1 to 2 years to figure out an exit plan or something goes awry. So literally you have a 5-year window to go from 300 million to 3 billion. So we have to do 10X in 5 years. So the 10X in 5 years mantra became really embedded right from the beginning. And every single thing that we did was based on that. So we grew the business 300 million to 3.4 billion in 5 years. And we got acquired by Douglas Elliman, which is one of the nation's largest publicly traded real estate companies out of New York, which was a good transaction for everybody. So
wow.
Good win.
Is that one of your largest exits to date?
Yeah, it was one of our largest exits, but not personally for me. It's now is not the largest for me. We've had a couple before which were privately held, which was worked out well for others too.
Nice, man. So one quick question on that. What does it feel like when you get a big wire transfer like that deposited into your bank account? For everybody who fantasizes about it, what's that feel like?
Well, it's so funny. You never like I hit refresh on my Goldman Sachs account like often. I was like refresh, and then you hit that's the only time you do the PDF statement. You hit a PDF and you're like, I'm just going to look at this because I just want to. And my father made fun of me because he said, hey, how you wake up every morning and you just log in and look. I'm like, yeah, of course. You never dreamed of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not, I've learned, you've talked to one of my coaches, Jen. I've realized over the years that I'm not deeply money motivated. That's not my driving force. And for me, it is being able to be creative and being able to drive impact, having a great organization where I can do what I do best and not worry about the financial stress is actually more important to me. So the exits have come and gone and they have been great, very great for my family and my life. But if you were a fly on the wall in my life, you would never know. That's not the life we live. So
Yeah.
I'm super grateful for my wife and my kids who ground me very much. And we've just realized over the years that our priorities are different. So but it's like you hit refresh on that bank account a lot.
Especially to go from thinking about, like literally you were eating pizzas, dumpster diving, if for the people that don't know, there's the famous raccoon Pop-Tart story, like people, getting mugged for $50 and then negotiating with the guy. I mean, you came from very humble beginnings, and I love to see that you're still humble today. Let me ask you this, Sharran. A lot of people see what's going on with COVID. A lot of businesses are shutting down. You have one of the highest unemployment rates, if not the highest unemployment rate in a long time in recent history. Talk to me. What are your thoughts on, the state of the economy? How long do you think this could last? And obviously there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are struggling. What are some things you've seen in the landscape? Because there's always new industries that are doing well, right? The money just doesn't disappear, just reallocates to new sectors. So can you talk to me a little bit about, and for entrepreneurs watching or listening or people thinking about starting a business, can you talk to them about like what maybe things they should be alert for in terms of maybe pivoting their business? What are some things you're seeing in the economy, and what are some things you think that are just good insights for people to really be keeping in mind as they grow a business, start a business, to navigate these challenging times?
Yeah, awesome. So let's do a very high level on this. So the first thing that if anybody takes anything away, please consider this. Everybody's projecting to be an expert in the economy right now, right? And most people couldn't be farther from the truth. We have no idea what's happening. We have no idea what's going to happen. I actually spent time on Wall Street. I was a banker at Goldman Sachs and Credit Suisse, so I understand financial markets. I understand what it can do. I'm the first one to tell you that I don't know what's going to happen, but what I have done through this process is I have tried to audit my inner circle on who I'm actually listening to. So if there's anything else, the first lesson I would give everybody is audit who you're listening to, audit who you're taking advice from, and I'll give you my thought process around it. I'm not taking any advice from anybody who does not have direct skin in the game on the opinions. So for example, a talking head shows up on TV or in the radio or on a podcast, or worse of all, a social media influencer, just because they have 3 million followers doesn't mean they know squat. Just because they invest in a lot of real estate doesn't mean they can tell you what's happening with the economy. To me, it is, someone has to be able to place their opinion and then put their money behind that opinion. They can't change their opinion tomorrow because the facts changed. And because of that, I'm right now, when it comes to the economy and when it comes to economic prospects, growth, et cetera, I'm listening to only 2 sources. And that has allowed me to shut every other source down. And let me tell you what those 2 sources are. The first source for me is Goldman Sachs. And I'll tell you why. I actually was in the belly of the beast. I worked there. And so I know how they do research. And the one thing that Goldman does is whatever opinions, perspectives, research they put out, they actually put money behind those bets. So if they're saying, pharmaceuticals are going to grow, they're saying that, and then they're saying, hey, we believe that pharmaceuticals are going to grow, and therefore we are going to invest in this. Whatever they say they're going to, they have research doing, they're investing in the same thing. And so I have deep belief that they're putting money behind their research. And so I'm listening to that a lot because they have a lot more writing on that, right? That's number one. I'm not listening to anybody else from a where they put money perspective. But the second thing is, you also need someone who can break down macroeconomically what's happening. So Goldman is very opportunistic on the world. They're saying, hey, this is all that's happening. Here's what we're going to do going forward. But who can give us deeper context? And you actually know this person because you spent time with Tony Robbins, is Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio is the founder of Bridgewater and Associates, the largest hedge fund in the world. And Ray has made it his life mission to basically say, hey, I'm going to deconstruct macroeconomics for you and tell you why certain things happen a certain way, right? I've been talking to all the CEOs that I mentor. I always tell them this: good entrepreneurs make good decisions. Great entrepreneurs tell you why they made those decisions, right? Great entrepreneurs tell you why they made those decisions. And so Ray Dalio, just like, he's put all his stuff out, Principles, which is an amazing book. He basically says, hey, this is very similar to, the Great Depression. And let me tell you why. And he's like, I'm not worried, but let me tell you why. And he says, here are the pieces, here are the similarities, and here's how the governments around the world have, engaged with it. And here's what's going to happen as we come out of it. And having that macro perspective is super important. So understanding history and the macroeconomics along with opportunistic stuff is super important to me. And so I'm listening to those two sources. So lesson number one, I would say is, please don't be the headline junkie right now, because we are literally stressed out on the last thing that we read. Right? Like that's ridiculous, because everyone has a different opinion. So the first one is audit who you're listening to, and that way you have a continuity of that. The second thing I'll tell you from an opportunity perspective is that good operators and good businesses are still struggling at this time. So it's pretty amazing for good entrepreneurs to be like, this is insane. Like I was doing everything right, and suddenly overnight this broke down, and the entrepreneur is like instantly saying, oh my gosh, am I not good enough? Right? And so I want to speak to that entrepreneur who's saying, I've been hit pretty hard. I should have done this. I should have done that. Well, we can't live in the world of should have right now. And even good businesses are going to see some pain. So please forgive yourself that it's okay. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's okay that this is happening. So if this is happening to you, or this is happening to people that you know, there's a lot of empathy that needs to happen right now. So know that it's not your fault, and good businesses and good operators are still struggling right now. So that's number two. But number three, here's my most important thing. I am talking to several companies right now who want out. I'm working with one of my clients who wants to buy a textile t-shirt manufacturing wholesaler. And literally this t-shirt manufacturing wholesaler, it's not a huge business. They do about $8 million in top line revenue. $8 million in top line revenue. So it's not bad. And it's 30% net margins, by the way. So they take home $3 million a year. Like this is like amazing, right? It's a great business. I think it's a great business with just husband, wife. They've had it for 35 years. Wow. And 2 or 3 like floor workers. Like that's their entire business. So wow. You know what, for the average person, that's a really good business. Yeah. And so my client wants to buy this business, and they are willing to sell this business right now at inventory, at just cost of inventory.
Wow. Just out of fear of the situation.
Right. Right now they have active $400,000 in active inventory. They're willing to sell it at just say, hey, just buy the inventory and you can keep the entire business. Wow. Because the husband and wife operator want to retire. Right. And they're like, hey, we'll even consult with you to help you to keep our brand. Just pay us for the inventory because we paid for this. We made all the money. Like you can keep the rest. They're literally giving the business away. And let me tell you what's even better, Omar. We negotiated 50% of inventory. So we're paying 50 cents on the dollar on inventory. So my client's coming out of pocket $200,000. But the funny part on this one is he out of the 200,000, we got 100,000 for the seller to take a note. So the seller is assuming $100,000 note that we're going to pay back, and he got 100,000 from SBA. He bought this business for zero. Wow. So now he bought an $8 million business with $400,000 of inventory for zero money with existing contracts. Wow. Right. And so this is insane. So now my client instantly has a new business And he's like, this is amazing. And now they have orders, they have everything, and somebody to help them. So what I'm trying to tell you is a couple things. There's a lot of opportunities right now where people are not saying, oh, I'm losing my shirt. That's not what they're saying. What they're saying is, I've spent the last 6 weeks going on walks with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
I have not done we've been together 35 years. We've never had to do this. Maybe it's time to hang it up. You are going to see a significant amount of boomers or just people who want to retire. At this point, they're going to say, hey, cash me out for my existing, at cost. Just cash me out at cost. In fact, cash me out with cash flow, meaning, hey, I'll take a note, just write me a check for 10 grand a month from the business and you can keep it.
Yeah.
The opportunities to buy businesses right now for straight up cash flow for like is insane. And so I will tell you, I've never seen, as an investor, I have never seen more businesses come to my desk, and I wish I could buy them all. Like, I just wish I could buy them all.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that out of 7 out of 10 of them, there's a deal to be had with zero money down.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And zero money down, out of pocket, zero money out of to buy a business is insane. So from an opportunity perspective, that's really powerful. So what I would tell you is, I'll give you the last one. The fourth most important thing is, there's a lot of media sources out there that can be bought. So go with the idea that, hey, I'm selling to we're actually working on this right now, adult diaper business. They do adult diapers and things like that. They have a mailing list of 100,000 people that they sell product to. Their business is going under. They don't even want to open the business. I said, oh, you're going to close the business? They're like, yeah, I'm done. I don't want to close the business. I'm like, well, great. I'll buy your mailing list.
Yeah, the email list. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, I'll buy your mailing list. And he's like, well, sure, you can have it, but privacy laws. I'm like, no, I'll buy it. I'll buy it from you. And he goes, okay, well, how about like $1,000? I'm like, done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because for them, it was nothing, right? And like, it was not 1,000. It was, I scaled it down, but it was nothing compared to it. Because if you take 100,000 person mailing list and you take a cost per lead, you get all of them today. You can use their brand. So right now, we didn't just say, I'm going to buy the mailing list and send it under Omar and SHARRAN.
Right.
I said, I'm going to buy the mailing list and buy the brand so that I can stay congruent with who you are, and then sell them other things on the back end. Now I don't need a break even funnel on the front end. I don't need any of that. I've already acquired the client. Literally, they're giving me your client list, not your leads list. There's a lot of places right now where you can do this. My friend just bought one of the largest Facebook groups in a specific industry, the second largest Facebook group in an industry. He bought it for zero money down.
Wow.
Right? Second largest Facebook group in the entire industry. He bought it for zero money down, and the seller took a note. So he bought it. So he bought 51%. The seller took a note, and whatever revenues he's just going to create from that group, he's going to pay the seller out in an 18-month period, and then he gets to keep the group for free. So literally, he bought himself a media platform. And you know this, like you're a doctor of media. Like, you're amazing at this stuff. He bought a media platform for no money down. Can you imagine if someone had to go build an 80,000 person engaged Facebook group today? Like, that stuff is super hard.
Yeah, it takes time. Yeah.
So there's a lot of media platforms for sale. There are email lists for sale. And so when someone, I'm not a Gordon Gekko type of guy, but what I've seen at Goldman is, when I look at a business now, I see the several assets in the business. And I want to educate folks by saying, when they see a business and someone's like, oh, I can't buy the business. I'm like, you don't have to buy the business. You can see the pieces of the business that you can leverage. So one business that we're talking to right now, they have a list. It's a list, and I have a client who has a Shopify store that can sell to that list. But the business is for sale. They don't want to sell the list. And I said, okay, if you don't want to sell the list, I'll rent it. So you can rent media too, right? So he's like, well, what does that mean? I said, like, you can do a straight up affiliate deal. He's like, I don't know about affiliate. Your sales are yours. And I'm like, okay, well, let me do a mailing to a portion of the list. So we took 5% of the list. We sent one offer. We saw how it converted. And then we took the economics from that, and we did an affiliate payout to them. And now they're getting paid to rent the list, and we're keeping all the profits. So you can do so much right now, because never else in a time of history when businesses are struggling, people are opening up the keys to the kingdom and saying, look, like, I'm interested, but I don't know what it will sell for. And I'm like, well, how many assets do you have in this business? Can I take your warehouse space and convert it into a studio? Can I take your list? Can I take your Facebook group? Can I take your inventory and combine? Like, there's so many things you can do.
There's literally probably millions of opportunities like that, micro opportunities. So real quick, just to zoom in, because I love what you said. And Joel Marion, one of my mentors, has taught me the power of an email list and the longevity that that can create. And for those, you know, some entrepreneurs might know the power of an email list. For people who don't, can you just zoom in really quick and talk about the power of an email list? First part. Second part, for people who wonder, they go, well, Sharran, easy for you to say, you know, you're this multimillionaire, you could do this. But isn't this a lot easier than most people think in terms of, obviously you need to have some capital to invest, but is it as easier as 1, 2, 3 as pick up a phone, call the owner, find the owner, get in touch and say, hey, I noticed that, you know, you have these assets in your company. I was wondering if, so any context on that? Number one,
sure.
Email list for entrepreneurs long-term. And secondly, how do you go about approaching it for people who might go, holy shit, that's a great idea, Sharran. How do I do that?
So let's talk about the list first, right? So let me give you an example. So think about this for a second. Think about if you have if your child had a birthday. So my son Neil, 8 years old, Neil had a birthday, and I want to throw the biggest, baddest birthday party for him. Well, I can. Let's just say I can do that, and it's going to be amazing. But I have no idea who to invite. I have no invitation to make. I have no offer to make for his friends. How much would that suck? A lot. Yeah. I believe that a lot of entrepreneurs right now are more worried about creating a perfect birthday party than actually creating the perfect invite list. You can get by. The kids will show up on your yard and they will play hopscotch and have a great time, right? You don't even need, what we need is to be able to say, okay, can I hit one button and create an invitation? The list is not to sell. The list is to invite. You're inviting people into an experience. Now, the interesting part about this is the reason why a list is important is I think of all these social media platforms, et cetera, as they're social, right? They're social because now you have the ability to scroll. You're scrolling, and you're watching, which is interesting. But social is different from personal. I think email is personal, right? And when someone reads email, like someone might tell you, hey, Omar, look at this. Like if I'm having dinner with my wife, I'd be like, hey, honey, look at this post by Omar. That was really cool. Remember that day? But I never look at my email and then say, hey, honey, read this email. Like very rarely do you do that. Email is very personal. You read email one-on-one. Email is personal. And email is also opted in, right? You've opted into an experience. You're giving people permission to saying, hey, I raise my hand. I'm interested in what you're doing. Think of this as my son's friend saying, yeah, I want to hang out with you, dude. Like put me on, I want to hang out with you. That's what these guys are saying. Every single thing in your business, in some way, shape, or form, all roads lead to the list. You have no list, you have no business. Like it literally at the end of the day, imagine this. Imagine my son Neil and I, imagine we had a huge birthday party. We had a ton of friends here. And then Omar and I decided to start a business in Louisville, Kentucky. We picked up and moved to Louisville. What happens now? I have no list. I have no friends. So I have to build everything again. And that's what people don't understand. So you look at, let's take everybody that you've interviewed, man. You take Jason Capital, you take Jared Getz, you take Bedros Keuilian, you take Craig Ballantyne, you take Ed Milet, you take Grant Cardone. You take all these guys, like none of them have anything without their list. Their list is everything. Right. And so no list, no business. So having the list is super, super, super important. People always say this, and Omar, you and I talk about this a lot, is it's not about building a great burger. It's about having the hungry crowd, right? Like if you have a hungry crowd, you can sell them a burger, a hot dog, whatever. So our job is to constantly cultivate this list. And my email list is like, I have a relationship with my email. Like I could literally write one email to my list and do they will do whatever because we've been adding so much value to them. So if you don't have a list right now, and even if you have zero, I would say start, the best time to build a list was, 8 years ago. The second best time is right now. So I would start building on a list. And the one thing I said, Omar, was all of us are on a lot of lists, right? You take Jared Getz or Jason Capital or Bedros Keuilian or Craig Ballantyne, but Ed Milet, Grant Cardone. Like Grant emails 9 times a day. Like literally, right? And so we think that, oh, Grant's got the social media, like he's selling from the list all the time. So if you forget, take Russell Brunson, like all these guys, no list, no business, right? They would do whatever it takes to safeguard their list with their lives. So high level, right? I would totally think about the list. The second thing is, Omar asked a really good question. He says, well, hey, it's easy for you. But you guys have to understand this. Literally, like most of these deals are coming for two reasons. Number one, they're coming because, I'll give you a very simple reason. They're coming because in all my bios, you go to my LinkedIn bio, my Facebook bio, my Instagram bio, there's a simple word in there. And all of you should use that word. You should say investor. Just put investor in the bio. Because now someone will be like, hey, Sharran, I saw that you're an investor in this. Like I probably get 3 deals a week from people that I don't know that just say, hey, I saw that you're an investor and I wanted to reach out to you. I get a lot of opportunities. And now when I get those, I get to send them out to people saying, hey, Omar, this is not mine. This may be of interest to you. Now, when you see it, you start giving it to me. It becomes a real kind of giving circle. But yeah, I will tell you, I've done more deals with no money down than anything else, because most of the time you can figure out that that person actually wants something else. Like they don't care about the cash. Most people, I'd say 8 out of 10 times when someone wants to sell a business, 8 out of 10 times when someone wants to sell a business, it's not about the cash. They're just in pain in some other part in their lives. And just know that 8 out of 10 times, wow, when someone wants to sell a business, they're actually in pain of something else. They will actually take less than what's in their head. So let me give you guys a little tip on buying businesses. Very, very simple. It's called the price terms rule. So Omar, let's say you and I are talking about it and you say, well, Sharran, I want $14 million for my business. I said, okay, well, if that's what we're going to agree upon, you get your price, but I get my terms. So I'd be like, that's cool. Well, I'm going to pay you $1 million a year for 14 years. If that's what you want, you get your price, I get my terms. And if you say, well, no, I want the terms. You're like, okay, well, you get your terms. You want all the cash up front. Well, then I get to choose the price. So a lot of times when I talk to people, people are like that. You can't have both the price and the terms. You can't say, I want 14 million. I want it right now. And I want no liability. Like that doesn't work. So it's, and you always call it hey, there's the price terms rule. You get to choose the price. I get to choose the terms, or you get to choose the terms. I get to choose the price. And most of the time you won't agree. And when you don't agree, now that's when you're open to the negotiation. Otherwise, the seller is like, well, I want this. But only when they realize that they have to give in a certain way, that's when you win. And I will tell you, you will win on terms more than anything else. And terms are really powerful. Like I have actually seen people I just want to get 100 million. Pick a number. I just want to get 100 million. I'm like, great. I'll pay you 100 million over 20 years. Yeah. Awesome. Now I have to come up with 5 million a year and I can finance the rest. Like that's an amazing deal if the business is worth that. So you can win on terms. And now take the 100 million to 100,000. But if you saw what I did for the textile manufacturer, $200,000 deal, 100,000 is a seller note, 100,000 from the SBA. The SBA is like, this business is worth 8 million, or not that, but the cost of inventory. I only have to lend on 1/4 the cost of inventory. So now you can start to do some really good deals. So it's also hard if you don't have I can probably deconstruct a deal faster than most people, but I know people who can deconstruct deals faster than me because you've seen and done so many more, right? Yeah. You just have to have the belief system that you don't have to write a check to buy every business. Businesses are for sale all the time. And right now, more are for sale than you ever thought.
Yeah, including the assets of them, the micro parts, if not even the entire business.
Correct.
I love that, man. Okay, we got a couple questions here from fans, so I'm going to shoot off a couple, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So here, let's see. Someone said, Mr. Gulick said, what is the one mistake that you've made in business that you would not repeat, Sharran? You're like, ouch.
There's a lot, dude. There's a lot. Yeah. So let's talk about it. So the one mistake, partners are very difficult.
Let's hope this partner that you're thinking about is not listening.
No, there's no partners are. I won't name names, but partners are very difficult. So let's talk about partnerships. Sure. And I think I would tell you that I've had one partner for 21 years.
Mhm.
So I totally get along with the guy. He's fantastic. So I have not had any other partner that long.
Mhm.
And there's a couple things that go into a partnership. And I wish I had known what I'm telling you now. I wish I had known 20 years ago. So let's take that for the lesson. The first thing that breaks partnerships, the first thing, in my opinion, is, this is no specific order, but for me, is that there is a work ethic misalignment.
Mm.
Omar and Sharran are partners. Sharran gets mad that Omar doesn't work as hard as he does.
Mhm.
If you can't find a partner that you believe both of you have similar work ethic, it will break so quickly, so fast.
Mhm.
Because you, as soon as things get tough, you will instantly go to, well, I'm working harder than Omar is. And
Mhm.
that is the beginning of the end, because it doesn't even matter whether they're more efficient than you. Nothing matters, right? People talk about integrity. Integrity is one thing. If you can just get the work ethic right, at least you know that both, like, if I know that you're in the trenches with me and you know that you're like, oh man, Sharran's working his face off, I'm working my face off, I feel good about this. That alignment is super important. And I've had partners that have not shared the way I work. That's me. That's number one. And I remember conversations with others and where I got frustrated with my coach, et cetera. And I kept saying, it's just a frustration of that person's not working as hard as me. And it'll really bother you. And you'll feel selfish saying it. And then that's the beginning of the end, because there will always be resentment. And that's not cool. The second thing I've also found is that you and your partner should share the same values around kindness.
I love that, and I've actually gotten that from you, and that's never left me from our first interview. Is that we hired literally with a huge focus on kindness. Even more so, skill is important, but if that kindness isn't there, that temperament is not going to be a part of, the company, people, the interaction with customers, clients. There has to be that. It's kind of like, when you go into a restaurant or you go into IHOP or something, and the lady might not sell you on the dessert and the appetizer or whatever, but she was kind, so you want to go back, or you like her, you care about her, you're more likely to tip you. Yeah, totally. And I've gotten that from you. So I don't mean to interject, but I just want to validate that point, because that is so true, and that has totally revolutionized the way I approach human efficiency, because that's an intangible that I think most people overlook. So I want to thank you for that. But keep going.
No, of course. So if you think about it this way, if you introduce your partner to someone else,
Mhm.
think about the other person coming back and saying, man, I can see why you're partners. If they say that, that's not about opposites. It's all about the kindness. It's all about the kindness, right? So that's super important. Third, I've done various versions of this. And if I had my way, I would prefer there are equal partners. I would prefer. It's not feasible all the time, because in a recent business, my fund, me and my partner wrote, the early 7-figure check, and the operator that we brought on didn't. Well, therefore they can't be. There's no equity. It's not equitable to do that, because we took on a lion's share of the risk. But that shows up every time, because now they're like, oh, I only care about the cash flow, not the equity. Therefore, I'm going to do, you do misaligned stuff, right?
Yeah.
The partnerships that I've had that are 50-50 or a third or whatever, somehow in a weird way, don't have that messiness. And if I had a choice, I would much rather have it being equal, but I don't think that. So if those three things, if they're kind of in place, and here's the last thing I'll tell you. There's no handshake agreement. That stuff does not work. It does not work. There is no handshake agreement. Your handshake agreement essentially is, the only way a handshake agreement works is if there's something written. And the only way, like, you have to memorialize everything. And even if it's the best partnership, you can say, after a partner meeting, you can say, hey, why don't I just write an email and recap everything that we talked about, so that we're all on the same page. Like, I would write everything up, not from the perspective of documenting it for legal reasons. Not at all. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, when you put it to paper, it clarifies thoughts, and what someone else thinks may not be what you heard, and that gets you to realign much earlier in the process than later in the process. So the faster you can recap stuff is really good. So I'll give you a simple example that that I may have shared with you. If you're watching and you're a coach or a consultant right now, one of the things that's super, super important is, let's say you do a discovery call with somebody. You're a discovery call, you're a one-on-one coach, you do a discovery call with somebody. Say you sell high ticket coaching, $3, $5, $10, $15,000. Right after the call, especially early on in the relationship, right after the call, you should say, you know what, Omar, I enjoyed speaking with you. Just if it's okay with you, I'm just going to put 5 to 10 bullet points together of what I got out of this conversation and what our next steps would be. Would that be okay? Oh, of course. You put that down. Imagine that versus Jimmy, who did that with no follow-up call, right? You realign them very quickly. And if you're off, you know that you were off very quickly. And if you're on, you know that you were on. And most of the time, 9 out of the 14 things on that list, you're probably right about. So it's very easy to fix the other 3. And then the client gets insane confidence that if things go awry, I can bring it back quickly. That's the key, right? That's the key. So I would memorialize everything. And by the way, just so you guys know, I've been in enough lawsuits, court disputes, etc. You don't have to write, like I actually helped one of your clients with, remember with the legal situation, right? You don't have to write things in a legal manner. Like, I think it's a big, big mistake. When you're in a partnership, when you're in a client situation, when you're in a JV, when you're in a vendor relationship, write it like it's a conversation. Hey, Omar, it was great to catch up with you, blah, blah, blah. By the way, these are the 4 things that we talked about. I wanted to make sure I understood them correctly. Can you just confirm if I understood what you said correctly? English, easy, simple, right? Because at the end of the day, you're not trying to cover your ass. That's not what you're trying to do. Yeah. What you're trying to do is get alignment so you can work together. That's what you're trying to do, right? And I think it's super important. And people don't write stuff up enough at all. And then they're like, oh my gosh, Sharran wrote this up. And I'm like, no, I wrote this up to make sure that you and I are aligned so that all the work that I do going forward is not in vain. Yeah. And I wish I had done this stuff way sooner. Now I do that. I do that way better now. So those would be like a few lessons on partnerships.
And then I wanted to also ask, when it comes to you partnering with people, how important is it for you to, because I'm sure you've learned throughout the years, you've worked with partners who have had the same strengths as you. I'm sure you have weaknesses, that they have strengths. Have you found it always ideal when they are strong in your weaknesses versus having partners where you're tripling down on strengths because you guys are both good at the same stuff and you guys outsource the weaknesses? What's been your pulse on that, on the strengths to weaknesses ratio? Because I see a lot of partnerships where, and I know in my own experience that things usually flow best. I agree with you when it's an equal share, because, then when stuff may cross line into that's my responsibility, whether it's yours, but like when it's an equal partnership, it's kind of like we both do whatever the hell it takes in anything. Cause at the end of the day, it mentally is fair. But in terms of the weaknesses strengthening, can you talk about that, about how important that is? And if you think that's important to find people who complement your sort of weaknesses and strengths? Yeah,
I think that I think about it a little differently. I don't go seeking, I don't go seeking an opposite, because I also think that having some overlap is good because you have context, right? So sure. If you and I were in a partnership together and I only handle finance and you only handle marketing, like you would have nobody to bounce ideas off of. Right. So right. I need to have a little sense of, I need to have a little sense of that. But what I believe is I need to be able to look up to my partner in something and say, okay, when that's an Omar thing, he's better at me than that, and he's going to make the final call on that. Like, I need to be able to respect you so much that I know that you are a badass at something, and I'm willing to do, and you need to be able to do that for me. Sustainable. And so recognizing the other person's extreme capability and skill is super important, because now what happens is when you're talking about your partnership with someone else, hey man, you have to meet Omar. He's like the media guru. He knows how, like, you start to explain that and your passion comes out in that. And now you start to build the business around your strengths. Like, there's a really great Dan Sullivan quote that says, when you spend time working on your weaknesses, you develop a bunch of really strong weaknesses, right? Like it's a fascinating thing. So I'm not like, I don't spend time saying, oh, okay, like I don't do this very well, I'm going to shore it up. No, I don't care. Yeah. You also, when you do things that you're not very good at, it's the you get tired and resentful. So I like I need to be able to look up to my partner. Like I never want to have a partnership where everything that they do is somewhat mediocre. Well, then what the heck? Like that doesn't work. So I need to be able to say, oh my gosh, she's a badass at that. If I don't have at least one area where I'm looking up to somebody, something's dramatically broken. So look at your part. I will tell you right now, if you have a partnership that's not going well, or you are resentful in some way, there's almost nothing that you look at them and you're deeply impressed by. Almost nothing.
Have you ever had partnerships where you had to like sort of get out of it, or you had to like drastically do something that was super challenging to get out of, but you figured in the long run it's better to cut my losses? Have you had situations like that?
Yeah. So, dude, that's so tough.
Yeah.
That's so tough. So I think I missed the first part of the question. So it's like, hey, business is going okay. If this right now, do I continue? Do I shut something down or bleed for a while, right?
Yeah. Particularly as it relates to a partner. So say you're in business with a partner, business is going okay, you're growing it, but there's starting to be maybe, just a lot of that friction, and you could sense like, shit, with everything else on my plate through time, I could see this kind of rocking the boat, and I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. Have you ever found yourself in a pinch like that and had to sort of get out or get out of it or
yeah,
negotiate it? You had that happen?
Yeah. So I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
I'm not a guy that will tell you these words: always, never, nobody, everybody. Those are really tough words, right? People that say you should never do that, they're installing a belief system in you, which I don't think is fair, right? So, but I will tell you my learning from this. I've had great partnerships and tough partnerships. Looking back, one of the biggest lessons I've learned in partnerships is if something doesn't work and you're worried about that same thing multiple times, I would give yourself a number. Hey, if this happens 3 times, I'm out, right? I have never, like this is me personally, I have never had anything that has continued to get better. Like there's a really great quote: bad news doesn't get better with time. Right? It just doesn't. And so the people are like, oh, timing is everything. I'm like, no, it's not about timing. Now you have to, be strategic about it. Like you can't just fire your CFO. I get that. I understand that. You have to be a little strategic. So here's one thing I would suggest to people. May it be a bad employee, a bad executive, or a partner that you don't get along with. As soon as you know it's not working, fire them in your head. Just fire them in your head. Because the problem is we are emotionally connected, and the only time we fire them is when the separation happens. No, fire them in your head right away. And now the world is centered around how you build a life without that person. Then the world starts to rearrange itself and you'll find the solutions. If you can't fire them in your head, then you have no idea how to actually kind of proceed with it. So I have, every single time I've gotten out of a partnership, I wish I had gotten out of it sooner.
Wow, that's interesting. So when you say fire them in your head, then you're saying that from a perspective of don't just fire them and figure it out, but like fire them mentally and then sort of play the tape forward as to possible ways you can go about navigating. Because maybe you get an insight and they actually work in a different capacity, or maybe you find someone else and now you at least have a plan if you do fire them because you have somebody else and you're in solution mode, not in resentment mode, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so I'll give you a very simple example, and this happens to a lot of people. So I had an employee recently, a sharp guy, young guy, sharp guy, like a total hotshot. And he walks into my office and he literally asks for twice his comp, like double. And I mean, the performance was mediocre. So I said, hey, listen, just walk me through your thought process so I can understand where you're coming from.
Rationale,
right? Yeah. Right, just walk me through it. And at the end, I realized that all he was saying, well, I've talked to my friends in various Facebook groups and I should be making this, right? And so at that point, 1, I don't think he deserved that. 2, I don't think the business deserved that. And 3, how he handled it was he walked in. None of those worked for me. And I knew right away that as soon as if I submitted to that, that was only going to be the beginning of the end. And from a precedent perspective, that wouldn't work, right? So what I could have instantly gone to, oh my gosh, I can't believe this, and lost my cool. And so I'll tell you what I did. I said, hey, so let's do this. I need about 2 weeks to think through this. So I don't like make it arbitrary. I need about 2 weeks to think through this. And let me tell you why those 2 weeks. I'm traveling for a week and I got a mission critical project. Clearly, this is not changing anytime soon. I've heard this. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. And on Friday, the 19th at noon, let's get together and talk about it again. Is that cool? Awesome. That way we'll have a resolution at that time. Okay, awesome. Can you do it sooner? No. No. That's it, right? And so right then he walks out the door. I take out a piece of paper and I'm just like, okay, fired in my head.
Yeah.
What happens now? Right?
Yeah.
So now I'm on a mad dash saying he's done. Like he's done. And my next 2 weeks are, thank you for giving me a heads up, right? That I'm just not going to do this. And you, if he had walked in and said, hey, Sharran, I'm working on this. I would like to do more. I have bigger goals. How can you help me get there? That was a completely different conversation, right? So firing people in your head is a really good thing because it lets you emotionally disconnect from the situation right now and do what's right for you and the business and the family or whatever. Otherwise, if you get into the, I can't believe he did that. I can't believe he did that. I can't believe he did that. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? But now if you know that he's done, good things happen. So I'll give you a fun way not a very weird way for people to think about this. So when we were doing estate planning weird in the United States, I know you have a lot of international audience. Estate planning in the US, essentially what happens is, Sharran, when you die, what happens to the estate, the family, the assets, all of that, right? But most people can't think like that. Well, when I die, when I'm 75, like whatever. So my advisor at Goldman told me this. Hey, Sharran, like we're going to play this exercise. Let's assume you passed away yesterday. What happens today? You fired him in your head. Same exact thing. What happens yesterday? You're done. Now play it out. Play it out right now. Yeah. So the fastest way to bring it to life is to say, hey, let's assume this happened yesterday. What am I going to do today? And now you're like, oh my gosh, I passed away yesterday. Like I'm going to rewrite all my plans because now it makes it very real, right? And so now you can actually deal with the reality of the situation. But most people don't allow you to put yourself in that situation. So you keep kicking the can down the road.
Yeah. And they put themselves in fight or flight response, not thinking clearly, built up resentment, emotion, all that. Dude,
the central guiding principle is this, man. Bad news doesn't get better with time.
Yeah, powerful. Okay, cool. Let me ask you 2 more questions from fans. There's a lot of questions, but I'll just ask you 2 more. What's the #1 lesson you learned in sales that changed your perception of life and business? The #1 lesson you learned in sales that changed your life and business.
So sales, everybody thinks that sales is about showing up and delivering this amazing presentation and then blowing the person away so that they're so impressed by you. They're like, I want to hire you, man. Like, right. But interestingly, I've learned over the years, especially high ticket, especially high-end stuff. I've not had a chance to sell a lot of and it's not a snooty thing. I just have not had experience doing that. Selling high-end stuff, high-end coaching, high-end consulting, high-end real estate, selling all of that. I've noticed that there's an emotion that is present when sales happens. And that emotion is not being impressed. That emotion is safety. So when you get to the appointment, they just want to feel safe. And when they feel safe, they're like, Omar will take care of me because this is a big part of whatever. I'm investing in big money. This is a big piece of asset. If I feel safe, I hire you. And the way to create safety is you win before you arrive. Because you win before you arrive. Everything that happens up until the appointment is actually more important than anything else. So your sales meeting is everything from the time they said yes to the appointment till the first 7 minutes of the appointment. Everything else is irrelevant because everything up until the appointment creates, they know why you were there. And the first 7 minutes validates why you're the right choice. The first 7 minutes just validates that. Everything else is irrelevant. That's just question and answer. There's no objections, it's just question and answer. So even with, salespeople that I mentor, high-end real estate folks that I talk to, I always tell them, hey, win before you arrive. Imagine there are 4 people pitching for this piece of business and you were the only one that followed up this way, that set appointments this way, that showed up this way. And before you even got there, what if they had to make a decision without you even presenting? How would that work? If you do that, then the entire appointment becomes really easy because they just validated why you're the right choice. So a lot of people are like, oh, let me give you my, my objection handling skills. I'm like, the objection handling skill? Are you serious? You're getting objection handling because everything else sucked. That's why you're getting objections. If you just set up everything else correctly from the beginning, you created this feeling of safety, and everything happened. And there's and one thing, for people that are selling stuff, let me tell you one thing that allows you to create safety is process. We never promise, it's very hard to promise a result, especially if you're coaching, consulting, delivering. You don't promise a result. You say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I'm not sure of exactly what we're going to get, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk you through the process that we have perfected over the last 41 transactions that has allowed us to hit 7 winning results. I want you to be number 8. Something like that is super helpful, because now they know that they can install and deploy a process with you, and that you have worked out the kinks, as opposed to, well, Omar's going to wake up tomorrow and be like, ooh, what do I do for Sharran today? Like, that doesn't work, right? That's not what, so they're buying the safety of the process, and you're just a vehicle delivering that process.
Very cool. I love that. Let's see. Oh, this is good. Someone said, ooh, there's a good. How about this? How about I read 3 and you just pick one that is particularly compelling? Is that okay?
Let's do it.
So someone said, what's the edge that you have as an immigrant, Sharran, that you think has helped you in business compared to most people who, take being in this country for granted? So the number one advantage of being an immigrant. Someone said, what mindset shifts did you have to make when you first acquired your level of success? Like, did you have imposter syndrome where you felt like you couldn't handle it, or it was beyond you, right? Because I know you had an exit early on that, relatively speaking, for you at the time was like kind of like imposter syndrome. And this person, actually, I know them, they had a big hit success and it kind of played with them emotionally. And then one more question is, what advice would you give to somebody who is not an entrepreneur and is stuck in the employee mindset and might be in their early age, 20, 30, 40, has always wanted to, but the risk averse thing hasn't always been on their side? What advice would you give to somebody who's in their 30s or 40s? I think it applies to any age, but older, who wants to get into creating their own income. I mean, you could answer one, you could answer a little bit of all 3, whatever you want. So
yeah, those are 3 good ones. Yeah, I remember all 3. So let's go.
Success and the best advice for somebody to get into entrepreneurship, especially during this time when it's scary and they've always been an employee and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So let's go with the last one first. Happens often. You're in a really good place when you can have deep awareness around it. The first thing that I would do is make a decision on not whether you want to be an entrepreneur. That's not the decision. The decision is you're going to find out whether it's right for you. That's the decision. Find out whether it's right for you, because there's a lot of this entrepreneurship, just FYI to you, is a curse. Yeah. It's a curse. It's not a badge of honor. It is a curse. Like it is very hard because you're wired in a very weird way. You're wired that way. And you're wired to take on an insane amount of risk without having any of the capacity to do that. It's very weird. So my gift to you would be, don't try to say, I want to get into entrepreneurship. I would say, I want you to figure out whether it's right for you. And the way to figure out if it's right for you is find an entrepreneur who's out there that you respect, that you admire. Find someone who's running a business and actually be super honest with them and say, listen, I am an insane number 2. Tell them I'm an insane number 3. What I want to do is I want to make your dreams come to life, because I know as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of ideas. If you can show me the ropes, I will actually help your dreams come to life. And in the process, maybe you can walk me through how you create that reality. Now it becomes a partnership. Now I know Sharran, I'm going to create these dreams and Jimmy is going to execute on them. And that's a good partnership, because now Jimmy has to prove to me that that's what he wants. Now you get to see whether that's the life that you want, right? That's super, super important. So I would put yourself, we call it, we call it environmental exposure, right? Like, without being there, you're never going to know. But outside looking in, it's very rosy, I'll tell you, but it is a curse, right? That's my first one. So let's talk about imposter syndrome. I'm not, I think less about imposter syndrome and more about, what do I do next? That was the hard thing, right? That was like, so let's say you do something, you have some early success, and now what messes with my head, and it messes with a lot of the CEOs that I mentor is, well, I was here, I got to here. Well, my next title has to be CEO. My next title has to be president. Well, I have to do, well, why don't I not have 100,000 followers? Why don't I? I should have. And that's the thing that I struggle with a lot is, immediately I think about, well, I mean, I have to do better than last time. Like I have to, I think that's the hard part. And I think that's undue pressure. And I don't think that's fair. So it's less about the imposter stuff and more about the pressure of what to do next and how do you unravel that. And so let me give you a key around that is as soon as you've had a piece of success, the next question to ask is this. It's, who do I want to be a hero to? Right? Like that is a very easy question to answer. Like, who do I want to be? And until you answer that question, don't do anything else, because until you answer, like, I want to be a hero. Like Omar, I remember your early years, you were an amazing tutor, right? Like you got people with ADD, ADHD, you helped them out. Like you wanted to be a hero to them. Yeah. And that, therefore you were able to do that. And I actually believe the reason why you are, very gifted at being a great interviewer and a great collaborator is because, yeah, you may have notes, but you're super present and you're just like, I see that, I hear that, I can work with that. You hold the space very well. So who do you want to be a hero to is good. I don't know much about the imposter syndrome stuff. I'm a low key kind of guy. And so, but
I think their question was rooted in like mindset shift, meaning, cause I know, for example, at one point for me, I dreamed of making 100,000 a year at one point. And then first time I made 100,000 a month, I was like, oh my God. And I sabotaged my own success. At that time, for me, that was like, a zillion, $1 trillion. That could have been $100 trillion. And I remember I went through a lot of like, oh my God, like I felt weird. I couldn't relate to my friends. I couldn't go to the same places or eat the same thing, or I would pay for them, or I feel guilty, or like I didn't want to tell people, but then my team knew, and then people want raises. Like it put me, not that anybody had ill intent, but it just messed with my mind in new ways. So when you had your first successes, or maybe an exit, or a couple things, have you had moments like that, particularly I guess early on? And what mindset shifts had to happen? Did you ever have like where you sabotaged your own success because you had it, or you were blowing money, or you were just like kind of going a weird direction because of the success early on? Were there any mindset shifts with that?
Yeah. So I think everyone goes through this on their own terms. What I went through was very similar to what you said. Was I found my closest circle of friends, associates, colleagues, whatever, not able to understand me anymore. And because of that, I thought I was a misfit and something was wrong with me. And that's what I thought. Right. And my coach at that time basically said, hey, Sharran, you just are in the wrong peer group. And so I'm very fortunate that I had a coach. I'll tell you the one thing that every single person needs to have in their life, the one thing is you need to have someone in your life that you can talk to about anything that you respect, and there's no judgment. Like literally your success in your life is based entirely on this. If you don't have somebody to talk to, not a shrink, this is not medical. If you don't have somebody to talk to, that a coach or a mentor that looks and adores you for who you are, has no judgment, and you can tell them anything. You can say, oh, I'm feeling like this about my spouse. I'm feeling like this about my children. Like anything that is, if you don't have the ability to do that, you're going to have to suffer in silence a lot. And I'm fortunate that early on I had a coach, and she told me, hey, you just need to upgrade your peer group. I didn't know that. Like I struggled. I didn't know that. So that was when I joined EO at that time, which was Entrepreneurs Organization. And then I outgrew EO because a lot of the businesses were, smaller in size. Then now I'm a member of YPO, where the average business size is $100 million. So like I can walk in and say, I have a $4 million lawsuit that I got slapped with yesterday. And everyone's like, oh yeah, you should call my guy, Omar. He'll take care of it for you. Like instantly like that, as opposed to saying, oh my gosh, you got to, they're not shocked by that stuff anymore. Right. Like during COVID, I actually have a friend right now who's in my inner circle. He has a $60 million business. So it's a good sized business. Because of COVID and what the business does, his revenue went to zero in 14 days. Zero. He had to furlough 2,400 employees.
Wow.
2,400
What industry is this?
in events.
Wow.
Yeah, it's insane, right? And
Yeah.
so imagine the conversation that he's having with us. If it was with his high school friends, they'd be like, "What do you have to worry about? You know, you're gonna make 3 million this year instead of 14. Like, boohoo!" But that's not the answer, right? Like now he's like, "Yeah, I have 10 million in the bank, but that's gonna burn this fast."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so upgrading your peer group is super important. And I also found the fastest way to upgrade your peer group is to just pay for it. So if you pay for it, there's a symbol of seriousness to upgrading the peer. Like, dude, talk about upgrading the peer group. You wrote $100,000 check.
Yeah. So the 100 million mastermind. Yeah.
$100,000, and you didn't do it. Like, I'm sorry, whoever you are, $100,000 check hurts. Whoever you are.
That hurt. That hurt. And everybody in the group will tell you, it's like, but you know, again, it's, I guess that goes back to the conviction. And everybody in the group, by the way, yeah, like you said, no matter, I mean, even if you have 30 million in the bank, I was definitely probably, I mean, that whole room is a bunch of winners. I was probably in the lowest percentile of earners in that. Because we're talking about people who do in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, you have the best of the best in all industries, not just internet marketing. But yeah, I mean, it's scary, but you're absolutely right. It shows a certain level of commitment, and there's a certain level in an interesting way of respect. You know, you're in the group, you get it. You know, they'll pick up your call, they'll take the thing. And here's the thing, you know, 100,000, it sounds like a lot, but when you compare it to the longevity of the insights, information, the amount of stuff you would avoid, the amount of money that you would not waste on ads or maybe going a certain direction or the wrong part, it's the quality of the advice, not necessarily the words of it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I'll give it, dude, I've written, I mean, when I wrote my first $25,000 check to go to Genius Network, I go, what, like, this is for 3 days? Like, this is insane, you know? But I met Bader Schooley, Jason Capital, and Craig Ballantyne on day 1. Like, that was like, that was worth it, like, instantly. So let's go to question number 1, which is kind of the immigrant edge. The immigrant edge is very different for a lot of people. And for me, it is realizing that there is no plan B. Like, I have no plan B. And so when I build something, I'm like, we're going to do this. Yeah, manage the downsides of the risk and stuff. That's cool. But if you say, oh, if this doesn't work, like, I'll go do this. Like, no, I will go do that. Like, that doesn't work. And that allows you to just be super focused on your drive, and you actually manifest insane amount of success that way. And so I've just realized that I'm a no plan B kind of guy, and that's good or bad, I don't know, but you figure it out along the way. And I think one of those things was just saying, hey, when I left India, there was no plan B. And I like hanging around with people with no plan B because they'll do whatever it takes to create the new reality.
Yeah, I love that, Sharran. Well, dude, I have one more question before we hop off. I know we went over on time, so I want to thank you for that. I didn't even notice that till now. One last question I have for you is, you know, when it comes to business, a lot of people think about starting a business, or maybe they're pivoting their business, or maybe they're trying to scale, but maybe they have to scale laterally. They can't sort of scale in the same, you know, vertical per se, right? There's got to be a micro tweak. You mentioned live events. A lot of people are doing virtual summits now in lieu of it, right? So I wanted to ask you, when it comes to you starting your own thing, not just investing, but starting your own business or your own lanes of business, what's your sort of method and how you approach it? I know me and you have had many private conversations where you've told me awesome stuff in terms of, you know, think about the promise, scale the promise, you know, singularity of focus. You know, there's no room for fear on paper, right? Get clear, make a plan, create a compelling vision, get the team around it. But I wanted to ask you, what about, you know, when it comes to starting a new business, whether you're a coach or consultant and you're thinking about, you know, what niche to go into, or maybe you're a service provider and now, you know, you're pivoting slightly, or maybe you make physical products and now the demand isn't there, it's somewhere else, right? Whatever it is, but say you're starting, right? And this could apply to starting or pivoting, right? You're starting a new thing, whether you have an existing business or not. What's the way you go about it? Do you sort of rapid fire test what could work, throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks? Do you look at market demand, see if there's competitors? Or do you pick one thing, go all in for X amount of time, and if it doesn't work, change the idea? What have you seen being an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur? You've had exits, you've had many multi-million-dollar successes, you've invested in many companies, you've seen successes and failures. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs looking to start a business in terms of how they should approach it or how they should pivot the next move, given this economic situation moving forward? I know it's a loaded question.
No.
But I just wanted to be thorough.
Let's talk about that, right? So um, just to piggyback on a recent conversation that you and I had, Omar, was there's a distinction between what you want to do for the long term and stuff that's opportunistic.
Right.
So if you feel like there's something opportunistic, call it that. Hey, I believe that there's a 12-month window to manufacture masks. I believe that's a 12-month window to manufacture. You don't have to become the mask guy like that. I don't have to do that, right? So first, I would say make the call on whether it's opportunistic or not. Because for me, right away, I'm like, okay, is this something that I see myself doing for a long time? Or no, is this opportunistic? Awesome, let's be opportunistic. What does it take? Then once I know it's opportunistic, I want to know whether it's opportunistic and fizzles out or is opportunistic and someone runs it. Mm-hmm. So my understanding there is I'm going to help launch it, I'm going to help build it, and then there's going to be a transition and I'm out. And either I sell, either I divest, whatever, but I want to know whether it's opportunistic or not. So that's the first thing. So in a time like this, while we're recording this, it's COVID, if you think that there's an opportunity saying, hey, I'm a media agency and I do Facebook ad buying, I want to go into TikTok, I think that's opportunistic because you have no idea if you're going to build your business on TikTok. You may say, okay, well, let me do that in addition to everything else, but that's opportunistic. And I think opportunistic stuff is very good. And the only thing I would say about opportunistic stuff is to have a metric for success. Hey, in 9 months, we're gonna put $10,000 into this, and in 9 months, if we don't get to 100,000, we're out. If you don't do that, you have no barometer for whether you hit it or not, and you will keep putting good money against bad on that. So whenever you do anything opportunistic, there has to be a time and money kind of metric around it. Otherwise, you will keep trying to make it work because that's how you're wired, right? Like that's
where you are in space if you don't have the barometer of a goal. Yeah.
Correct. So that's number one. On the longer term stuff, if you're thinking about, hey, how do you evaluate opportunities for a while? And if I want to see if I'm going to do this, I always do like 25 years is too far out and 2 years is too far. Like 3 to 5 years is like a general window. So I like three years as a mark. And I want to be able to do a vivid vision, basically lean forward 3 years and say, if everything worked out exactly how I planned, what would that 3 years look like? Like so I actually do this exercise. I'll share it with everybody. It's a little woo-woo, but the exercise is this. I close my eyes and I say, it's 3 years from now.
Yeah.
I'm looking around my life. What is true? What is true? Right? And we have this office on the corner of Beverly Hills that is all glass and we have 97 people working in there. Oh, cool. I can see that, right? That's cool. Hey, we have, I have 19 people working that are driving sales every day. I walk into a boiler room and I hear the phones and I can feel the energy. Okay, that's cool. Hey, we just got named 4 times in a row, Inc. 500 in the last 4 years. Oh, wow, that's cool. I can see that. When you can start seeing the vivid vision like that, like, dude, I have goosebumps right now, right? just because you're totally vibing into that. It's a little woo-woo, but now you know what is true. If you look at what is true, you're like, okay, I saw that was true. I saw the paint color on the wall. I saw the wood paneling with my logo on it. I saw that stuff, right? And those are really great, what I call artifacts of success. Once you have those imprinted, those become the guideposts for where you go. If you can see it with that much vividness, then you're destined for that's a thing that you're really excited about. Now, when an opportunity comes up, you're like, oh, I saw that space in Beverly Hills. I want that. I understand that was part of the vision. So you go for it and you're able to do more. But if you never had that, you never know how to make decisions. And so for me, whenever I make a decision, if I don't have clarity in like a 3+ year mark and I can't vibe out the vivid vision around it, I'm not there yet. Like I'm not there yet. And that just means it's probably opportunistic or I probably need a little bit more time because I can't quite see it. And generally it's not about the business opportunity. It's just that I'm not in the right mental space to commit to doing something.
Right. Yeah.
That's all it is. Yeah.
So a lot of self-awareness, it seems, is a big part.
Yeah, because dude, at the end of the day, people think that a business strategy is going to get you there. A business strategy is secondary to your belief system. It literally is. If I told you this, and I'll share this with everybody on the show. I told you, I know Omar 5 years ago. I know Omar today. You had no idea you were going to do this.
No clue. Yeah, no way.
But imagine this. If you had no idea and you've created and you've had over $10 billion worth of guests on your show, if you have no idea, imagine how powerful it is with a little bit of design. A little bit, not a lot, a little bit, right? And I think a lot of people accidentally get there. But it was like you believed so much, like you believed more in what the passion few stood for than you believed in anything else.
Yeah, you told me something powerful, and didn't forget it. You said that the passionate few didn't bring you here. Your passion behind the passionate few is what brought you here, meaning the belief and the conviction. So would you say more so with the entrepreneurs you've seen who've had success, that more so than the actual idea or validation from others? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, have gone through, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Where you're trying to somehow get reassurance to push you over the edge to do the thing. But in your experience, what you're saying, because if I asked anybody about doing a podcast, interviewing people, how you monetize it, everyone does that. But like I saw the vision so clear. I even reflect, I never asked anybody, hey, do you think I should interview this person? Or, hey, should I start it? I was just full speed ahead. And I didn't care how it would work out. I knew I would do it until it worked out. It was blind belief and conviction.
Yeah.
Would you say business has been the same way, where it obviously, there's got to be market demand, and, there's got to be deliverables, and you've got to build good results and all that. But for the most part, would you say that is a driving force behind most of the entrepreneurs? It's been more of a conviction than opportunistic, at least as you look at the grand scale of people who succeed versus fail?
Totally. But as soon as you see the vivid vision, it's, like, watch out, man. Like,
okay,
watch,
so final question. How do you get people to see the vivid vision? A lot of people watching this say, well, Sharran, you've had success, so maybe it's easy for you. Or, maybe Omar, you've had success with this. So what advice would you have for people in terms of finding their vivid vision, particularly in a time that seems dark and, challenging for a lot of people? Any final words of wisdom to people on how they can create that vivid vision? Maybe a step 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So the first thing is you ask the question, my life is awesome right now. What is true? That's 3 years from now. My life is awesome right now. It's a statement. What is true? And now the what is true is not what you think to be true. What is true is what you write. You write, this is true, this is true, this is true, this is true, this is true. And then I would do that exercise 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I would do it at different times in the day. And you do it like 3 or 4 times. Whatever is the common thing that kind of keeps coming back is that part of what you believe, right? Is that part of what you believe? But
and that's 3 years out, right? Like in 3 years, this will be true. This will be true. Right?
Generally, how I like to think about it as, hey, today is January 1, pick a date. January 1, 2022. My life is awesome. I'm looking around. What is true? Like that. Now answer the question. So that way you're already in a good place. My life is awesome. Good. You're in a good place. And you may realize that, hey, I'm making $22K a month and I have no bills and I am living in, Louisville, Kentucky. I am good. Awesome. That's like amazing insight that I wish you would get right now so that you can go chase that, right? There's no qualms about that. So it's to date, my life is awesome. What is true? And dude, I do this with, I've actually done this with other guests on the Passionate Few. So I've actually done this with them, and you see the stuff that they write is so insane. Some are very mechanical and some are like deeply inspiring, and those are good. That's a good mix of the two.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Very cool, man. I love it. So you're almost borrowing from the future more so than worrying about testing the present or being too logical about it. So the spaghetti thing, throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks, is that something you do or not so much?
I mean, I used to. I'm a big fan of like testing and then investing. So yeah, maybe mechanically speaking, yeah, I'd be like, hey, we want to add another income stream to our business. What income stream do we add? Well, great. I'm going to add some upsells in the back end. I'm going to add some coaching and consulting. I'm going to go, great, awesome. I'm going to spend $10,000 in each and see which one has the most results. Yeah, mechanically speaking, that's fine. It's very opportunistic, but when you throw a lot of stuff, like it hurts me a lot because I'm just like, that didn't work. Oh crap, nothing works. Like I hate being in that place.
Yeah. And that's,
yeah. And so if nothing worked, then that's going to really suck. So I try to say, hey, I'm going to pick 3 things. I got 3 horses and put 3 horses in the race. I'm going to bet on the 3 horses, whichever works out. And then I'll learn from that. But that's more opportunistic.
Yeah. And the goals are very realistic. I know you told me, and this is our final point, is you tell me anytime, and this is for anybody watching who's starting a thing or maybe pivoting a new thing and they're trying a new thing or trying to go all in on something, you said have a specific goal within a certain amount of time to see if it's worthwhile. You talked about the barometer of knowing where you are, where you want to go, to say, is this worthwhile? With your goals, are you realistic year 1, couple months? What have you found works for you in terms of goal setting? And everybody's different. You mentioned the 3-year thing, but to go a little bit micro, when people are just starting or testing something, do you keep your goals really realistic, or do you keep them ambitious and think like, if I could hit that? Obviously you sort of had success, so you have a rapport with your goal setting. A lot of people are kind of like, they've never made any money. All of a sudden they want to become an affiliate marketer and make $1 million their first year. But from your realistic perspective, with your association of your ability to set goals and hit them, exceed them, sometimes fall short and learn, what works for you on the micro that you would give advice to people on setting goals? Should they keep it super realistic? Like what's any insight on that?
Yeah, totally. And so this is a good thing that for us to kind of cap it off on. So this is the central theme of my book, which is very cool. It's the concept of minimum standards. So let me actually walk you through the concept of minimum standards. Let's say we have our friend Jimmy. Jimmy just graduated from University of California, Berkeley, and Jimmy says, you know what? As a college graduate with a business economics degree, for me to live and work in San Francisco, I need to make $75,000 at least. Mm-hmm. So Jimmy right then has established a minimum standard of he needs to go get a job or a career or whatever that makes him 75 grand. That's his minimum standard because he needs that apartment, he needs that car, he needs that life. So he's saying that's my minimum standard. And you know what happens? The world conspires, his thoughts conspire. He builds his entire life around that identity that he's going to make $75,000 a year. That's how it works. Well, what happens is 2 years goes by, he gets a couple of job offers from other people, and he's like, oh, it would be nice to make 90. And then suddenly his minimum standards jumps to 90. Right? And so once he does that, now suddenly 75 is not good enough anymore, and the world will conspire, and he'll start looking at opportunities, interviewing around, and then as soon as he gets 90, he's done. Now he's at 90. But here's the interesting part. He's at 90, right? But suddenly Jimmy's sister is sick. Jimmy's sister needs $50,000 a year worth of experimental stem cell research. Jimmy now has to make 140. What happens? 90 goes to 140 instantly from a minimum standards perspective. And the world will change. Jimmy will figure it out. Jimmy, it's a second job, third job, whatever, but Jimmy will find a way to make 140 because he's established in his head that he has to take care of his sister.
It's a must, yeah. It's
a must because now his minimum standard is not 90 anymore, whereas just last week it was 90. And in fact, it was 15 grand higher than his 75. That was his previous minimum standard. So he'd never set a standard for 140. But now it's 140 and he makes it happen. So the fascinating part is this: we are going to be a slave to our minimum standards. We're just going to be a slave to our minimum standards. And so what I like to do when I set goals is I want to be super real. I'll run the spreadsheet. I'd be like, hey, so I believe that these metrics are good. Here's a aggressive situation. Here's a realistic situation. Here's a baseline situation. Awesome. Hey team, if we do anything under the baseline, we failed. If we hit the things, it's great, but I'm assuming that this is the realistic situation. That becomes my minimum standard. And so we have to build around it. It was no different to tell us when I said, hey, we need to do 10X in 5 years. It was not like 10X in 5 years would be nice. No, we're going to do, it's a statement, right? So the hardest part is it is very, very difficult for someone to switch their minimum standards in their minds, in their current environment. That's the problem. Yeah. That is the problem. So if you are in the same group of friends, your friends are, yeah.
They almost exaggerate or dilute the fantasy because they don't have an accurate gauge on the reality, or just never really took inventory, never really wrote it down, never really got acutely aware of it.
Yeah. So like I go into my YPO forum and we discuss financials, and I see one of my peers who's the same age as me, and he made $91 million this year. And I'm like, I'm not saying why not me? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, did that just create a new level of possibility in my minimum standards? Yes, 100%, right? 100%. And if I keep seeing that, your possibility goes up. And so now you have new minimum standards. The lifting of your minimum standards will automatically upgrade your life. And so I'm very real about, like, I don't have it'd be great if we get, I'm very real about the goals. And I tell the team, this is the goal. It's 10X in 5 years. Like, how are we going to get there? And what are we going to do to get that? But as soon as you figure out the minimum standards, you get to upgrade your life.
That's so true. And that's part of why I've invested in stuff, but I've also made the flip mistake sometimes where I've told myself, okay, well, actually, I wouldn't even call it a mistake, but it would create pressures. I would lease a car that's a little more expensive than I could to pressure me to make the money. But there are other ways of doing it, with less downside.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it makes sense in terms of just getting really accurate as to what you want and what that standard is, and then trusting that you will figure out the way, instead of just jumping all over the place with all these arbitrary goals that have no basis in reality or no congruency inside of you. It'll manifest in the work.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sharran. I appreciate you being on the show. And where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you and follow you? Anything cool that you have coming up? Any new projects, books?
Yeah, totally. So I'll tell you this. I did something. I want to give it as a gift to everybody during this COVID time. I did 10 conference calls for my inner circle. And essentially it was 20 years of experience in 10 minutes each. So it's 10 calls, and it's called the 2-week MBA. And I recorded all of them. I didn't share them with the world. So it's, I'd be happy to share them with everybody here. It's the number 2weekmba.com. It's 2-week MBA. There's no funnel, no gimmicks, no upsells, nothing. It's 2weekmba.com. Just go register. You'll get everything. And it's 10 ideas from the last 20 years of things that have worked for me. So hopefully they can work for you too.
Very cool. Thanks so much. And we'll plug that in the link below wherever you guys are watching or listening to this. You guys can also follow Sharran on Instagram. We'll put his links there. And yeah, Sharran, thank you so much again for being on the show. It's been awesome having you on, man. Thank you for coming on to the Passionate Few and sharing your wisdom as always, my friend. I always enjoy it.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed that video, make sure to smash that subscribe button right now. And also, if you're a podcaster, you want to launch your own YouTube show and you want our team to help you grow it out for you to help grow your business and your audience, we specialize in doing so. You can check out the free Facebook group below or apply for one-on-one coaching. And last but not least, share this with a friend if you think it'll bring them tremendous value. I know you were inspired, and who knows, they might be too. So make sure to share it. And last but not least, make sure to click on this video and watch the next one. If you thought this one was inspiring, this one will blow you away.